Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on Tuesday. Hands up, I apologise. I know this is my first video for a long time. I was off last week, I had the kids, I was away. Just been mad week, school holidays and all, and it's just been impossible. Like I said, I haven't been working, and I was hoping to get a couple done at least last week just to sort of keep things going so you didn't completely not hear from me, but I just couldn't manage it, and I apologise. I know lots of you have been sending questions, so here I am back. School holidays nearly over, so I will be back posting videos with much more regularity now, so apologies for that. And let's talk about transfers, shall we? Transfer window shuts 1 week today. While I was away, obviously Arsenal got the deals done for Ramsdale and for Martin Odegaard. So that's great. 5 in for Arsenal now. Will any more arrive? Possibly. I'll get to that later on in this video. But I think for now, the main thing is getting people out the club, because so far Arsenal haven't been able to do that very well. Joe Willock obviously did go to Newcastle for around £25 million. That's a very good deal for Arsenal, in my opinion. But they need to get other players out. They're certainly not going to get that sort of money for anyone else in this transfer window, but they can certainly get players off the books, and that's going to be very important in terms of the squad. I think that you consider how many players Arsenal have got out at the moment with COVID, with injuries, and yet you look at that substitutes bench on Sunday against Chelsea. I will get to that game, unfortunately, a little bit later on in this video. You look at that substitutes bench and you would expect, given there was so many players out, that it would be full of under 23s players and things like that, but it wasn't. I think that says an awful lot about how many sort of unwanted senior players are still around at the club, and when you've got no European football to offer this season, that is not a good thing, so they need to get some players out. And we're getting there perhaps closely. Willian, Sead Kolasinac, Lucas Torreira could all move on, certainly before the end of the transfer window. Others as well, potentially Eddie Nketiah. But we'll start with Willian. Wrote a story that went on Goal last night. It's been reported widely as well that there is a chance that he could go back to Brazil, to Corinthians. Now, this is not a done deal yet by any means, and sources that I've spoken to over in Brazil say that Willian's preference at the moment is still actually to find another club in Europe, but he is open to leaving Arsenal. Obviously would like to get Willian out this summer, and talks are ongoing with Corinthians, his former club, about a potential free transfer. Now, all parties are willing to discuss this possible deal, but it's certainly not absolutely done yet. So I wouldn't if you're not a Willian fan. I know not many people are Willian fans when it comes to Arsenal. I wouldn't be dancing just yet and waving your flags, because there's still stuff to do, but it is a potential deal that could happen on a free transfer. I would suggest that Arsenal are going to have to cover some of Willian's wages if that is going to be the case, because let's face it, Corinthians cannot offer what Arsenal are paying Willian. No chance. So although Arsenal will be getting him off the books, I think they'll certainly have to still commit to paying a fair chunk of his wages for the time being. Hardly ideal, but when you're in a situation like this, you've got a massive earner who's absolutely flopped at the club. The club want to get rid of him. He's quite open to going as long as he finds the right destination. Then this is the situation you're in. It just comes back to, again, just how bad a deal that one has turned out to be. But fingers crossed, we might see the end of the Willian saga at Arsenal before the end of the transfer window, whether it be Corinthians or whether he finds himself another club in the next week or so and does get to stay in Europe. So that one is potentially moving forward. He's obviously out at the moment with COVID anyway. But even if he was fit, I wouldn't suggest we would have seen Willian much this season at all, because talks are ongoing about getting that deal done. Now, it is just a dreadful transfer. I'm not going to sit here and absolutely slag it off, because at the time of the deal, I actually was one of the people saying it was probably actually quite a smart deal for Arsenal, because I've always liked Willian as a player. I still thought he had plenty to offer, but unfortunately it's just turned out to be a horrendous deal. One that's certainly been better for him and his agent than it has been for Arsenal. And I think you'd say after some of the previous bad deals of taking aging players from supposed rival clubs, you'd hope that that's the last time we see something like that happen. And it seems to have prompted a change in Arsenal's transfer strategy as well. We haven't seen that sort of deal yet. Certainly this summer, it's much more a young profile that Arsenal are looking at when it comes to signing their transfers. So Willian potentially off to Corinthians. We'll have to wait and see if that one does get done or not. Another player who's very, very close to leaving Arsenal, and might even be done by the time you watch this video. We'll have to wait and see. Is Lucas Torreira? He is getting very, very close to Fiorentina now, as has been widely reported. Looks like it's going to be a loan for Torreira with an option for the Italian club to buy. Not sure if that option is going to be an obligation yet. Still trying to find that out. Obviously, for Arsenal, it would be much, much better if it was, because you'd have guaranteed money coming in next season for Torreira. Whether it is or not, we'll have to wait and see. Wouldn't surprise me if it ends up just being a normal option, because that tends to be the way things work, especially in Italy at the moment where money is tight. But hopefully Arsenal can manage to convince Fiorentina to include an obligation to buy in that clause. Just a transfer that hasn't worked out. Looked like it was going to be an absolute worldy transfer when he arrived. Played so well. Just slotted in perfectly. Looked like he was that defensive midfielder Arsenal have been crying out for a long time. Just didn't work. Didn't settle in London. I think Emery suddenly playing him out of position, completely lost his head at that point. Torreira didn't work out. And yeah, it's just, he just needs to leave now. It's just plain and simple. He needs to go. He doesn't want to be here. You can't keep a player really doesn't want to be here. And he'll hopefully be heading off to Fiorentina very, very soon. And Sead Kolasinac could well be joining him, heading out at the Arsenal exit door at the moment. There has been lots of reports in Turkey about this move to Fenerbahce. Talks ongoing with that one. Not as close as a lot of the Turkish reports have suggested. I think that was evident by the fact Kolasinac was still on the bench for the game against Chelsea at the weekend. Again, his wages are an issue. He's on decent money at Arsenal. He came on a free transfer from Schalke, so Arsenal whacked up his wages. I think it's on over 100 grand a week. Turkish clubs certainly can't afford to be paying that. So again, it's something that has to be worked out in terms of potential wages. Will Arsenal cover any of it? What will he be willing to lose to push through this move to Turkey? So it's another one we have to keep an eye on. But Kolasinac to over to Fenerbahce is something that could happen before the end of the transfer window, and there are a few others bubbling along as well. We'll have to wait and see what happens with Hector Bellerin. Arsenal, as I've said the whole way through this window, happy to let Bellerin go. He absolutely wants to leave and try something new. It's a case of finding the right club for Bellerin and an offer that suits all parties. That hasn't happened yet. Whether it does before the end of the transfer window, we'll have to wait and see. Eddie Nketiah as well, attracting lots and lots of interest from Crystal Palace. That's been bubbling on for a while. Nothing's happened yet. Arsenal said to be, according to David Ornstein over the Athletic, wanting 20 million for Eddie Nketiah, and Palace are only wanting to offer 10. I think Arsenal wanting 20 million for a striker who hasn't really been playing too much. He's injured at the moment and only has a year left on his contract, even with the whole English tax, as we call it. I think 20 million is a little bit of a push. Arsenal will be fortunate to get that, but I can understand why they're trying to hold out for more as we get closer to the deadline to see if they can get Palace to pay up a little bit more, certainly get maybe towards the £15 million mark. So that's one to keep an eye on. Reece Nelson as well. You expect he's going to get done before the end of the transfer window. It really makes no sense for him to stick around for another year. It's just a case of what Arsenal can do with him. Can they get him to sign a new contract? And then send him out on loan, and that will protect his value, and then perhaps they can get a decent chunk of a transfer fee for him next summer. That's all things that are being discussed behind closed doors at what is a very, very busy London Colney right now. We've had 5 incomings. Arsenal spent over £130 million, or they've committed to spend over £130 million on the players they've brought in this summer. But now, right at London Colney, the focus is on trimming the squad and getting a lot of these unwanted deadwood, as they like to be, or don't like to be called, but they're certainly known as, players out the door before potentially any more incomings arrive. So in terms of the incomings, I think certainly the right back situation is one that Arsenal would like to try and fix if they can before the end of the transfer deadline in a week's time. The fact we've seen so far, Arsenal have played twice. Callum Chambers started on in the first game. He went off. Bellerin and Cedric were on the bench, but a left back in Nuno Tavares came on to replace Callum Chambers. And now in the second game, Callum Chambers found himself on the bench from the start, and Cedric Soares coming in from the cold. He got the start. It just tells you the mess that Arsenal's right back is at the moment. There is no first choice. Mikel Arteta doesn't really know who he wants to play there. He just wants to bring in another player. But at the moment, that's proving difficult because Hector Bellerin's there, Callum Chambers there, Ainsley Maitland-Niles is there, Cedric Suarez is there. So it's very hard to bring in another right-back when you've got this big, bloated squad already. You need to get someone out the door. That was always supposed to be Hector Bellerin and Ainsley Maitland-Niles. So far, that hasn't happened. It's a case of trying to get something done for Bellerin, and then they could maybe move to bring in a right-back. Now, time is of the essence. Deadline is a week today. Kieran Trippier is on their list of targets, according to reports. I haven't had that one confirmed myself, but given some of the people who are reporting it, like David over at The Athletic, you'd expect there is certainly absolute genuine interest in Kieran Tierney from Arsenal. But the price tag just doesn't make sense to me. I think he's only got a year left on his deal over there. They're said to be wanting about 30 million for Trippier. I mean, that's just not going to happen. He's 30, I think, or 31. Just no chance that's going to happen. The only way Arsenal will be getting Kieran Trippier in is if, Atletico Madrid drastically lower their demands. Personally, I think it'd be a very good signing. Yes, he's old and it goes against the age range of the players that Arsenal are looking to bring in, but you can't just bring in kid after kid after kid. You've got to bring in some experience to help some of those kids along. Kieran Trippier, he's a very good player. He's shown in the last few years since he's left that mob down the road that he's a very, very good right back. He's been schooled by Simeone over in Madrid, won the title over there. He's been great for England, and I think it'd be a decent signing depending on the price tag. You can't go spending 30 million on Trippier, no chance. But if you can get a good deal for him and get him over maybe for 10, something like that, given his age and his contract situation, I think that would be a good signing. But we'll have to wait and see if anything happens with that. Striker, it's always something Arsenal would have liked to have done this summer if they could, but it was always going to depend on if they could get one of the possible big boys out. Yes, Nketiah might go between now and the end of the window. Whether that would lead to a new striker coming in, I'm not so sure. It's always felt like you need Lacazette to go this summer if Arsenal were going to push the boat out and bring another striker in. Wouldn't totally rule it out at this stage, but it's looking more and more unlikely. A week to go, nothing's really happened in that regard in terms of Lacazette and a potential move away, talk of interest from Monaco, people like that. But you think that the clock is ticking on that one. So it's looking more and more unlikely that we'll see a new striker at Arsenal this summer. I would suggest now, if you're going to say to me, put your money on one position where Arsenal might improve before the end of the transfer window, I'd say it'd probably be that right back situation. But we will have to wait and see. You never know what happens in the last week of the transfer window. Always gets a little bit crazy. Just finally on Chelsea and that debacle of the weekend. I've said my piece on Mikel Arteta after it. In terms of his future, people saying he's going to be sacked. As far as I'm aware, that's not something that's going to be happening any time soon. Certainly not we're talking about in the next week or so or something like that. He will be under pressure. There's no doubt. I've said it before. You're an Arsenal manager. You have to start winning games. At the moment, Mikel Arteta's not really winning games. He's had 60 in the Premier League since he's arrived. He's lost 20. That's exactly a third. Now, that isn't good enough. Losing is the norm under Mikel Arteta. It just is. And he needs to turn that round. Now, there have been mitigating circumstances this season. The COVID outbreak, the injuries. I mean, he's missing so many key players. You play against Chelsea at the weekend with everyone fit, with Gabriel and Ben White as your centre-backs, with Thomas Partey in midfield, with Lacazette and Aubameyang in the front line. I still think Arsenal lose that game because I just think Chelsea are that strong and they're that far ahead. But when you do it without that players, you're on a hide into nothing, really, and Arsenal were. It was always going to be a struggle when Chelsea showed their class. Lukaku looks quality. For me, Chelsea are going to win the Premier League this season. I'll be surprised if they don't. I think Lukaku gives them the edge over Manchester City. But this isn't just a one-off. The Arsenal lost at Brentford at the weekend before that in a real sloppy display. And the games after the international break are going to be key for Mikel Arteta. You've got Norwich, Burnley, Tottenham, and Brighton. 4 massive games. If things go wrong for Mikel Arteta in that period, if you don't pick up wins there and you don't pick up points there, then he's going to be under significant pressure at the end of that spell. Even though Arsenal have backed him, they've given him the money. This is a long-term project. Arsenal know that and they like Mikel. You continue to lose games and you start the season as badly as he potentially could, then you're going to be under real pressure. So he needs to get results and quickly to relieve that pressure. And that's why that batch of games after the international break, because let's face it, I think we're all expecting another defeat at the weekend at Manchester City. It'll be a very big surprise if Arsenal don't lose at the Etihad, given their record there, given the players they're not going to have available. It's those matches after the international break that are going to be so key for Mikel Arteta. If he doesn't win them, that he's going to be under significant pressure. So let's wait and see. Anyway, Arsenal back in action tomorrow night in the game against West Brom. Big news from that. Ahead of that game in terms of injury news and team news is Gabriel is now back in training. That's a big boost. Lacazette is now back in training after his COVID. That's a big boost. You know, I doubt that either of those two are going to feature against West Brom, but certainly for those games after the international break, it's a big boost for that. No Ben White. He's still out with COVID. Thomas Partey due back at the end of August, so we're getting very close to him. Same with Nketiah as well. The likes of Willian, he's still out with COVID and still being assessed. So good news in terms of Gabriel, good news in terms of Lacazette, and that will be a big boost for Mikel Arteta and for Arsenal as we go into those key games after the international break. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Like I said, apologies for being away and not doing too many of these for a while now, but I am back, so you should see much more of me in the future. Have a good day, everyone. Speak to you soon.